everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Alicia and I make sewing and DIY fashion videos. So it's been quite a while since I've made something from scratch. So today we're going to be making a slip dress. My fabric of choice was this beautiful silk fabric. I'm not quite sure what type of silk this is, but it's a bit different than normal silk. It's like a bit thicker. I got 2 meters because there's other things I want to make with this also, but I think you'll be fine with just 1 meter of fabric. To make the slip dress, I'm actually going to be using a free PDF pattern, and I'll put the link in my description box so you guys can follow along and do it with me at the same time as well. However, you guys have seen me attempt patterns in the past before and it has never gone smoothly, so before actually cutting it out of my satin fabric, I'm going to do a couple of tryouts sizing wise and also shape wise on some scrap fabric just to make sure everything fits before starting to cut. So I might make adjustments to the pattern. If I do, I'll just show you guys how I change it. So yeah, let's go on ahead and start with the tutorial. The first thing I want to do is print the PDF pattern and tape all of the pieces together. There's already some modifications I want to do to this pattern. I want to remove the seam that goes down the middle of the front skirt. So to make it into one full piece, I drew a line straight down the middle and we'll be placing that on the fold of the fabric. I also want my dress to be mini length, so I'll need to cut the pattern at the 3rd notch. And this is how my pattern looked like. Okay, so I actually cut out everything in a separate silk fabric first, so just to make sure everything fits well, and I already ran into a little problem. So the front piece over here, the darts, I think they're way too big because look how pointy, look how pointy it makes the chest area. Yeah, that's not gonna work. But you can see that the pattern has a really big dart. So I think if I make the dart smaller, I'll make the shape less pointy. Also, I would suggest to size down on this pattern. I cut mine in a medium and it's pretty big. I pinned the back to it and like there's a lot of extra fabric, so I might just need to cut everything into a small and then see how that fits. First, I'm just going to show you how I make the dart smaller. Take your front pattern and place it onto a new sheet of paper. And you also want to mark your new dart. Mine was about 1 inch smaller on both sides. Next, you'll want to align the tip of the dart and the top of the pattern onto an axis. Place your finger on the top of the pattern and rotate it until the new dart marking hits the axis. And trace that side of the pattern. And then repeat for the other side. Rotate until the new dart hits the axis and trace. And that's how you can adjust the size of a dart. Okay, so even after trying out so many different pattern pieces, I have come to the conclusion that the darts are just not going to work for me. No matter how much I try to alter them, it always makes it just too pointy. So what I decided to do was just to smooth out the dart into this curve. So like that, instead of the dart, I'm just going to make little ruffles to be able to gather it. And after trying on the small, the top fit perfectly, but now the skirt was too tight. So what I'm going to do is cut the top in a small and the skirt in the medium, and then just like slowly connect the sizes at the waist. Like that, it will fit perfectly. So that's pretty much all the adjustments I made to this pattern. So let's go on ahead and start cutting our fabric. Make sure to fold your fabric in half and to place the front pattern on the edge of the fold. Because this isn't pattern paper, I can't pin it to the fabric and cut directly, so what I like to do is to trace it with a water-soluble pen. Once everything is traced out, pin the 2 layers of fabric and cut everything out. So we got the back skirt, the front, and the front skirt. I also wanted to add a facing for the front and back, so just trace the top of the front pattern and add 1.5 inches to that marking. Cut it on fold, and cut the bottom with some pinking shears to prevent fraying. And you can also zigzag stitch the edge if you don't have these. Repeat the same for the back facing, and here are the facing pieces. I know I said earlier I don't think this is real silk, but I actually saw a TikTok where it like compares real silk versus like polyester silk. And if I remember correctly, I got silk charmeuse, which is what he was showing that was real silk in his TikTok, and it was more stiffer than the polyester one. That's why I thought it was fake at first, because I'm used to the more like flowy silk, but this one is like stiffer, so I think this is actually real silk. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about that. Oh, and I dyed my hair, so yeah. And speaking of TikTok, I'm going to film a TikTok for this as well. I'll show you what I filmed so far. That's it. We're gonna start by sewing the back piece. Place the skirt and back pieces right sides together and sew. The seam allowance for this slip dress is 1/2 inch. You also want to zigzag stitch all of the raw edges and cut any extra seam allowance. Next, place the back right sides together to the skirt and sew. And that's it for the back piece. Ignore this random hammer in the shot, I'm not sure why that's there. Now moving on to the front, we're going to gather the bottom of the top. Sew 2 parallel basting stitches, which is basically a straight stitch with the longest stitch setting, and make sure to leave some extra thread on both ends. Take the 2 stitches and pull on them to gently gather the fabric. You'll want to concentrate the ruffles where the dart used to be. To make the center point of the skirt nice and clean, mark the seam allowance and do the same for the top. Place them right sides together and align the 2 points on top of each other. Pin everything securely in place and sew. I suggest to sew in between the 2 basting stitches and stop sewing until you reach the marking. And repeat for the other front piece. Now you'll have the center front split like this. We're going to sew it halfway, leaving about 2 inches at the top unsewn. And by doing these steps, you'll get a sharp and crisp seam. I also sewed a top stitch to make everything lay flat. And here's the finished front and back. Now you can place the front and back right sides together, pin the side seams, and sew. In the first dress, I made it in a medium, and it was big enough to wear without a zipper, and somehow I thought the small wouldn't need a zipper as well, but I couldn't get it past my shoulders, so we'll need to add a zipper. If you want to skip the zipper, I suggest to size up and add some elastic to the back instead. Mark the seam allowance and the end of the zipper. Seam rip this part and place the zipper right sides together to the fabric and sew as close as possible to the zipper teeth. And then do the same thing for the other side of the zipper. If you need a more in-depth video on how to sew a zipper, I'll link it in my description box. Next, we're going to make the straps. Cut 2 1-inch wide strips of fabric, and mine were about 20 inches long. Fold them into 4s like this, and I suggest to iron it to make it easier to sew, and sew the open edge down. For the facing, place the back and front facing right sides together, and sew the side where there's no zipper, so for me it was the right side. Pin the straps onto the top, and then place the facing on top, right sides together. Pin and sew, and keep the center front pieces separated for now. Flip the facing over and everything should be looking clean. To keep the facing from rolling over, understitch it. So to do that, you just fold all of the raw edges towards the facing and sew on top of it. You won't be able to understitch where the strap is just because the shape is kind of pointy, so just sew as far as you can and then continue after the strap. And now for some finishing touches. This is optional, but because the fabric frays so much, we're going to add some bias tape to the zipper. So cut 2 rectangles out of your silk fabric and then just sew it like regular bias tape. And it made the zipper look so much cleaner, I really liked it. To finish the facing at the zipper, fold all of the raw edges inside and sew it right next to the zipper. I'm also not forgetting about the center front to be left open, so for that you'll want to fold it in half so that the front is right sides together. Fold the facing down and sew down the center front. Try on the dress and mark where you want the straps to be on the back. Seam rip a tiny hole and pass the strap through it. Sew it in place, and that's pretty much it for the top. Now the last and final step is to hem the bottom of the dress. And we're done. Here's the final transformation.
Let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream. But now let's have a surprise. Let's have a dream which isn't under control.
Thank you so much for watching this week's video. So as expected, there was little bumps on the road just by using a pattern, but in the end everything turned out really good, and I was actually able to make a second slip dress, and I also added a little lace trim at the edge of the top also, and I find it just ties the whole look together. So yeah, I really like how they turned out, and I'm really happy the pattern wasn't too much of a struggle this time. Yeah, I'll be posting more photos on the slip dress onto my Instagram at @AliYansen if you guys want to go check me out on there. And also follow my TikTok at @AliYansen and subscribe to my channel for more DIY fashion videos. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!